Hi everyone. Today I wanted to showcase a special session done by my student Linus. Linus has been going through the SRV course that takes you through Voyager, Seer, and Master, and he has successfully completed his Master level. The session I'm about to show you today was one conducted during his Master level training, which is the highest level training in the SRV course. The target for today is the Ariel UFO incident. On the 16th of September in 1994, there was a UFO incident that happened in Rua, Zimbabwe. 62 pupils between the ages of 6 and 12 said that they witnessed one or two UFO crafts that landed outside of a field near their school. A few beings proceeded to come out of the craft and have telepathic communications with these students. So we'll be diving deeper on what exactly happened on this day and what did these children see. A lot of them later on drew images, and up to this day, in their adulthood, they continue to maintain that this incident absolutely happened. This is a fascinating story and one that definitely needs to be brought to light. So without further ado, here's the session. All right, welcome, Linus.
Thank you.
So let's start going through this session, and just to verify, you did this completely blind. Now you know what the target is, since this was a session that was done in sometime in June, correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. Okay, well, please get us started with the base level topography information.
Yes, so I have a base surface with irregular topography, like a series of hills, and natural land with man-made presence, water, man-made smells, some smoke or cloud dynamics, semi-bright light, moderate temperatures, and I see multiple low bluish grey man-made structures on the surface and also natural objects on the surface. And I have subjects on the base surface outside, quite a few, both male and female. It's not a focused gathering, but there seems to be something that has caught their attention. I pick up multi-directional movement and some kind of kinetic movement as well. And I pick up a non-surface structure as well. And this, during the session, I have a strange feeling that is hard to put into words. Maybe some kind of swirling or rotating energetics, something like that. And then I have activity by subjects with voices and some crackling and roaring sounds as well.
Excellent. So I see you labeled this group of subjects Group E, right?
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. And then on the next page, you have a really, really good sketch actually showing your bluish-gray structure, the irregular-ish topography with the subjects outside of the structures. This is a really good sketch.
Group E, I sense male and female subjects and quite young. And I pick up mostly pale complexion, but also some darker shades. At the time that I'm doing the session, I'm thinking like maybe this is dirt on their faces or something like that, but it might as well be their complexion, of course.
Right.
So they are fully clothed, and they have, at least some of them have headgear of some kind, like a cap or something, and some have skirts. And I make a deduction of 19th century clothing, maybe because the clothing seems pretty simple and not like super modern or anything like that. Just simple clothes.
That makes sense.
And I pick up blue and darker hues.
And then I see you probed the general age of the subjects.
Quite young. That's what I pick
young,
up.
right.
And yeah, and when I go further into the session, I make a deduction eventually of children.
Right. Excellent. The description of these subjects, which would have been the primary school or elementary school age children in this, is excellent, because the Zimbabwe, which is the location that this happened, it's quite diverse in that there's a lot of Caucasians, but obviously a lot of Africans. So
Mm.
yeah, the you being able to pick up both complexions is great. And then the clothing obviously is the uniform, which would make sense that it looks like 19th century clothing because it's quite simple. It's for just school age kids.
Yeah.
So we moved on to structure F. Structure F would have been the landed UFO in this session. So could you move on to describe it?
Yeah. So I pick up a low structure, and the roof is kind of sloping, so on a curving surface. And when I probe this structure F, I also get this sense of a strange kind of movement again. During the session, it actually makes me wonder whether or not it's the structure that is moving, or maybe it's me moving in relation to the structure. Kind of weird. But then I get a visual of a saucer-shaped UFO with 3 landing gear legs. So I make a deduction of a flying saucer. And next to this structure, I see a small group of subjects gathered around.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great sketch right there. And if you've looked at the sketches by the children when they were reporting what they saw, it matches it perfectly. A lot of them did draw like a flying saucer type of structure.
Yeah. My drawing skills match the children's drawing. Pretty good.
It's great. Wonderful. So, did you perceive any subjects in or around structure F?
Yes, a small group of subjects. I label them Group H, and so they are. It's maybe a small group of subjects, maybe a dozen or so, standing around the structure, and I make the deduction of children, and they seem to have diverse appearances. Some have blonde hair, some have dark hair, and even though the outfits seem to be quite similar, there are variations of pants and shirts and skirts, and I see white socks and shoes. And I pick up various colors such as blue and brown and beige and white. And so the children here, they seem to be standing looking at this structure like really wide-eyed. Someone is reaching out with a hand, maybe pointing towards it, or they seem to be bewildered, I guess you could say.
You have that sketch, again, very great sketch showing the children standing around this structure F, which would be the UFO that we have here. And then you have a subject that is closest to structure F. Could you describe that subject?
Yes. So I probe for the subject standing closest to the structure, and so my first sensation is like this. I write down high weirdness factor because it's a strange sensation, comparatively speaking. And then I have a visual of a subject with slightly elongated head and large black slanted eyes. And so you might say it looks like your average short grey alien being, basically.
Wow. And you labeled that subject A?
Mm-hmm.
So next,
Subject A.
Yes. Next you moved on to a deep mind probe.
I deep mind probe subject A, and I get this perception, like this image of almost like a bubble, representing the mind of this subject, and it's really clear, really sharp imagery inside of this bubble, like high def. And so this mind is very vast, very spacious, fluid, calculating, capable. Many thoughts and concepts seem to be active at the same time with great clarity. And at this point in time, subject A seems to be conveying bleak images of a place that seems to have gone through some kind of disaster or fatal disruption. A collapsed society, unhealthy environment, worn down buildings, general dark stuff. And so subject A is conveying strong negative emotions also.
Wow.
So this imagery seems to be representing our future somehow. But at the same time, there is also like another future present, like two potential different outcomes, perhaps. And this other future is, I describe it as a rural, sunny, happy place, with less human interference with nature. Humans seem to be confined almost to smaller areas somehow, yeah.
So the first image you're presented with is this bleak, disastrous and healthy environment, and then you see that there is an option, which is this other one, right?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So let's continue with this deep mind probe. Could you describe the path that leads to the most positive outcome?
It seems, when I probe for this, that this positive outcome seems to be associated with new clean technology and some kind of rethinking or restructuring of society, where you have more cooperation between all humans, humanity going forward together as a community or a big team, and also with nature at the forefront, So it seems like in this future we treat each other and also nature with consideration and careful respect, and we don't overstep, our boundaries, so to speak. You might say it's some kind of a reimagined humanity.
Yeah, quite different from where we are currently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do we get on that path? You probed for that?
Yeah. It seems that this future is like born out of a tumultuous time that lies ahead of us. I have a visual of Earth engulfed in dark storms that covers like almost all the lands. But at the same time there are bright, sunny, almost pastoral areas that stays, well, in some sense you might say they stay unaffected by the darkness. And within these areas lies the seeds of change for the future. And as things settle down, these areas will grow and spread and revitalize what lies behind or beneath those dark clouds, those areas that are affected by the, chaos, or whatever you want to call it. And so the aftermath of all this seems to be a calmer, more harmonious place with definitely improved balance in many ways.
It gives hope, because you have this such a bleak image that you perceive first, right? And it's quite frightening.
Yeah.
And the children saw this image the same, and that's why I believe they were really, really scared by this image, and a lot of them were like crying, and they were like very frightened. But it's beautiful to understand that, well, obviously it's pretty dark, but there's always hope in some way, and this staying in this image where you say there's dark clouds, but there's a spot that is untouched by the dark cloud, and that's where the seed of change happens. Yeah. In my mind, feels like there's always a lot going on, but you have to stay centered when there's things like this going on. You can't get carried away with the the narratives and the events and certain world circumstances. So this is a very, very beautiful message. It's bleak, but you have a glimmer of hope, which is wonderful. So let's continue with your deep mind probe. And for this part of the deep mind probe, you had free reign. There was no sort of, it was just like, all right, Linus, have the conversation you want to have. It's not every day you get to speak to an alien. So let us know how that went.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was very interesting. So I was trying to figure out what I would ask this subject A at this point in the session, and so the first thing that came to my mind is, I've always wondered when I've seen recountings of stuff like Ariel School and other UFO incidents, why do they seek contact with children in rural Zimbabwe like this, for instance? is this what's the purpose of this? So, and also at this point in the session, I really didn't know for sure whether or not this had happened already, or if it was something in the future that was supposed to be taking place at a later point in time. So I asked if this event, this meeting, has already taken place, then did it result in what you wished for? So I perceive a visual of something like soil or water starting to move and boil almost. And this represents a transformation of us humans and our society. And so the purpose seems to be that to put ideas and structures into a state of turmoil or fluidity, shaking things up. And this in turn will enable change in the way how we think about things, and this will affect how society develops in the future. And the way this is set up by Subject A and the group that he belongs to is very complex and not really how humans normally think about causality and how we do things. So it's a pretty subtle thing that they are engaged in here.
Pretty subtle, right? Wow.
Yeah. So and this like a week or two ago, I saw one of the latest conversations with Harvey, where they talk about the reason for the common crisis. And as he gets so visual, that makes him think about sand, a sand bed, and it's being fluidized by air. And when you do this, suddenly you can move objects through the sand like it was almost water. And this was supposed to be representing how information will be able through this turmoil to penetrate the whole structure of humanity. And that's pretty much exactly what I saw during my session as well, even though I had never heard about sand and fluidized sand like this before. But that's a good analogy, I think.
Yeah, you'd done this, I think, maybe 5 months prior to that coming out. It's you do absolutely get the image, the way you're putting it. You do absolutely get the image of, things, information being like that, the air bubbles or the water bubbles or something like that, that will start to rise, right? There's so much pressure, and that causes this information to start rising, coming to the surface, which happens a lot, right? It makes sense that would, when you have so much pressure, that would be the causality, so to speak. Well, we'll talk more about that. But go on with your conversation.
So my next question was an attempt to try to figure out whether or not these were good actors or bad actors. So I framed it like this. I asked, what is your relation to the Galactic Federation, or any power structure that we humans might understand as a Galactic Federation? And so I perceive a visual of a great structure, network, and this conveys long-standing cooperation and harmonious feelings. And so Subject A and the group he belongs to seems to be somehow affiliated with the Galactic Federation in this imagery.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. That's a good question. Then
and then I go on to
question.
ask the final question. Curious, what should I do to help bring a positive outcome for the future? And immediately I pick up humorous feelings from Subject A, almost like a smile, and the words like "you're doing it" or something to that effect. And then I have a visual of a kind of a highway of information that flows into my mind as I move towards the future, with great structures interspersed along the sides. So gathering information like the way I'm doing in this session seems to be something like what Subject A has in mind with this. And then I conclude the session with making a deduction of the Ariel School incident.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, you got there. It's when you do remote viewing enough, things start to become, you start to perceive with more and more clarity. So you'll see it clearly enough to be able to identify it at some point, right? You have the children, you have the UFO, you have the gray being. It's like, where have I seen this before? So deductions start to become more and more on point or accurate. But this is, I thought this was such a wonderful session, which is why I wanted to showcase it today, because it's a message that has so much relevance in today's world, because we are in a bleak place, but it's also good to understand that with this kind of this heavy energy that we're under, there's also like a ray of hope. There's also that kind of the purpose that this fear and war and all this, it will bring through other things. That if you're ready for the opportunity, I think, or if you're ready to open your eyes, you might be able to make a great change and stop this from happening again in the future. And this last part, the what should I do, what should you do to help positive outcome for the future, and being like, oh, you are doing it. Do you take that as the information you're bringing through? You kind of already said that. Or do you take that as remote viewing in general, the skill of remote viewing and the kind of impact knowing how to remote view has on you?
Well, that's a good question. Kind of both, I guess. Like, it's hard to get this kind of information if you're not doing remote viewing or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
How else do you have conversations with aliens or whatnot? So, yeah. So basically both, I think. But yeah, I kind of perceive it as this flow of information is some valuable information that humanity needs going forward. That's how I kind of perceived it.
So remind me, how long have you been in training to get to this particular point?
So about a year. Yeah. 1 year, yeah, I would say.
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah.
So, all things being considered, this is like, I mean, honestly, you've come such a long way, and you've shown such dedication and consistency, which is like key, because a year is honestly not a very long time to be able to get to this level of expertise that you have. And I would absolutely consider you a remote viewing master at this point, as you know, the results here, they speak for themselves. You are going off of, like, I'm just telling you to move to subject E. You had already identified the move to structure F, and all the other information it's just flowing through you. And it's it's just to tell other people who want to learn that it's absolutely possible. And of all things, you know, obviously it helps to work with a teacher, but there's some really, really great self-taught remote viewers, and it's just a matter of putting in the time, putting in the consistency. And when we can get information like this and bring through disclosure, information, it's power, first of all, right? But we're also talking about the growth of our soul, the evolution of the human consciousness to a place where you can't be fooled. You're not relying on information from other places, as we've seen. I mean, I think this year, well, actually, the last few years have been so critical in understanding that we're just being fed a narrative. If you were to rely on, like, media, you know, the mainstream media and whatnot, you're being fed a narrative from somebody else, whether or not they think they're telling you the truth. So, yeah, highly encourage everybody to do their best, because remote viewing is totally learnable. It feels like a natural next step. It doesn't take much to learn. It's very learnable. It's very teachable. Yeah. So, good work, Linus. Very, very proud of you. Very proud of the place that you've gotten.
Yeah. Well, I have you to thank for a lot of that. You've been a great teacher. Yeah. You know, I think a bit like you said, anyone can learn remote viewing by themselves. themselves, and that's true. But I think of it like if you're picking up an instrument, like you're trying to play the piano or something like that. It's easy to just sit by the piano and like try to teach yourself everything, but it will probably take a long time, and if you're not really talented, it will be difficult to go like above certain thresholds. You'll probably be well advised to, you know, have a piano teacher that can help you along the way and you know, assist you and help you
Right.
like master the instrument. And that's pretty much the same thing with remote viewing, I think.
So thank you
So, yeah.
so much for allowing us to showcase this today. This is a wonderful, wonderful session, one that has a lot of impact and a lot of relevance in today. So yeah, thank you so much, Linus. Wishing you all the best.